This is the invitation of the moment to witness, to allow, to remain open as the quantum field restructures your reality from the inside out. For it is here in the stillness of trust that everything begins to change. This is the moment where many unknowingly sabotage their own awakening, because as the unknown begins to open, fear whispers and tries to drag their attention back to the comfort of familiar patterns, even when those patterns have been the very source of their pain. But let this not be your story, because what is happening now is unprecedented in the entire history of human consciousness. You are witnessing your own evolution in real time, and every vibration in your field is confirming it. Feel into this energy as we dive deeper into the mechanics of the observer loop, because once you truly understand how your attention has been trapped, you will never again unconsciously fall into the same cycles. Let me share something vulnerable with you, knowing that you will hear it in a way most cannot. 3 years ago, I found myself ensnared in the most sophisticated observer loop I had ever encountered. I believed myself spiritually advanced, quantum aware, fully conscious of how reality operated. But in truth, I had woven a subtle and elegant prison for my own awareness. Every morning, I would awaken and immediately scan the fabric of my life for signs of progress, searching for evidence that my manifestation techniques were effective, for proof that I was evolving. Yet, the very act of such constant observation was freezing my reality in place. The harder I searched for change, the more I amplified the very patterns I longed to escape. I recall the exact moment realization struck sitting in my meditation space, feeling frustration rise because the same issues kept reappearing despite years of inner work. Suddenly, like a bolt of lightning, the truth illuminated me. I was not passively witnessing reality. I was actively manufacturing it through the specific way I was choosing to observe it. My consciousness had become like a needle stuck on the groove of a record playing the same song endlessly, and no amount of spiritual practice could change the melody. The breakthrough emerged when I ceased trying to observe my way out of the loop and instead began observing the observer itself. I turned my awareness inward to study how my attention moved where it snagged what patterns it automatically gravitated toward. This meta-observation shifted everything, creating an entirely new relationship with consciousness itself. For the first time, I understood why some flow seamlessly from one luminous experience to the next, while others, despite their deepest devotion, remain trapped in repetition. It is not about worthiness, not about karma, not even about spiritual advancement. It is about the mechanics of how consciousness interfaces with the quantum field. This single discovery altered my life. Relationships transformed overnight as I stopped unconsciously selecting for the same familiar dynamics. Creative projects began to flow free from the obstacles that once seemed immovable, because my attention no longer clung to repetition. Even my physical health began to flourish as my cells received new information, liberated from the constant barrage of old stress signals. But perhaps the most profound shift was the awareness that I was not alone in this. Across the planet, others were awakening simultaneously, breaking their own loops, and somehow we began to find one another. Sharing insights, confirming experiences, weaving a collective field of coherence that amplified this transformation, making it more accessible to countless others. If you feel the resonance of these words stirring in your very cells, if there is a subtle recognition frequency vibrating through you, then you are already part of this network. You have been preparing for this understanding your entire life, whether you realized it or not. And I urge you now, subscribe not only to this message, not only to this channel, but to the entire wavelength of consciousness evolution currently surging across our world. Because here lies the truth. Most quantum experts never tell you, and perhaps do not themselves yet comprehend. There is a vast difference between intellectually grasping the observer effect and embodying mastery of it. You can read every book, understand every theory, memorize every teaching, and still remain hopelessly trapped inside your loop because knowledge alone operates at the level of mind, while wisdom breathes from coherence itself. And here is the revelation that disrupts all common assumptions: your thoughts do not create your reality. Even your attention by itself does not create your reality. Reality crystallizes from the specific quality of coherence between your consciousness and the quantum field. And coherence cannot be manufactured, faked, or forced through positive affirmations. It arises organically like a flower opening to the sun the moment your observer function shifts from rigid fixation to effortless fluidity. Most people operate their awareness like a searchlight, narrow, intense, always straining, scanning for specific outcomes. But quantum consciousness radiates like sunlight, pervasive, illuminating everything at once without strain or demand. When you move from searchlight mode to sunlight mode, you stop collapsing the same probability waves over and over. This is the secret of liberation, because the observer loop holds you prisoner only when your consciousness remains predictable to the quantum field. And tomorrow morning, if your attention wakes and instantly scans for the same messages, rehearses the same problems, anticipates the same day, you will unconsciously place the same order from the cosmic menu. But the moment you allow your awareness to expand, to release fixation, to become sunlight rather than searchlight, you step out of the predictable and into the infinite. What will astonish you most is realizing that the quantum field itself longs to deliver new experiences to you, for infinite possibilities are constantly pressing against the edges of your awareness, waiting to break through, but they cannot enter while your attention is consumed with reinforcing old patterns. You are not stuck because the universe refuses to help. You are stuck because your consciousness has grown habitual in the way it interfaces with boundless potential. The most advanced beings in the cosmos do not attempt to control reality, they dance with it. They live in coherent uncertainty, a state where awareness is fully engaged and present, yet not attached to rigid outcomes. This is what allows them to respond to reality with grace instead of merely reacting to it, and this subtle difference changes the very architecture of what can manifest through them. It is why some appear to live charmed lives while others struggle endlessly under similar external conditions. It is never luck, privilege, or cosmic favoritism. It is coherence, the alignment between consciousness and the creative force of existence itself. And when you master this coherence, you don't merely shift your personal circumstances, you become a catalyst, a living conduit whose presence creates quantum openings in the field around you. Others who stand in your presence begin to feel their own observer loops destabilize, catching sudden glimpses of their limitless potential. The great quantum shift is not a theory. It is unfolding now, and there are signs that reveal your loop is dissolving. The first sign is the intensification of synchronicity. They arrive with such frequency and such precision that you can no longer dismiss them as coincidence. The universe is not just hinting. It is rearranging itself around you, confirming that the old cycles are breaking. Notice, too, how animals respond to you. Birds holding your gaze longer. Unexpected encounters with wildlife pets suddenly behaving with unusual attentiveness. All of these are confirmations that your energy signature has changed, that your quantum field is broadcasting at a different wavelength. Even your relationship with technology reflects this evolution. Perhaps electronics glitch around you, or perhaps they function more seamlessly than ever before. Maybe your phone rings exactly as you think of someone, or your computer crashes when you attempt to engage with frequencies that no longer resonate. These are not accidents. Technology is profoundly sensitive to consciousness, and these anomalies are simply your expanding awareness brushing against electromagnetic fields. The most profound evidence, however, is how time itself feels to you now. Linear time is an illusion maintained by the observer loop, and as your consciousness steps beyond repetitive cycles, you begin to enter what mystics have always called the eternal now. You notice that minutes can stretch into eternities of insight and presence, while entire days can vanish unnoticed because you are no longer measuring time from the same dimension. Your sleep reflects this shift as well. You may require less rest, or your dreams become vivid, symbolic, and filled with downloads that your waking mind struggles to decode. Some nights it feels as if information streams directly into your cells from higher dimensional planes. This is not fantasy. It is your awareness expanding beyond the narrow band your loop once restricted you to, tapping into parallel timelines and elevated perspectives. and people notice even if they cannot name it. Some may feel uneasy around you because your presence stirs their own observer loops into instability, while others are drawn to you with magnetic intensity because they sense the frequency of freedom you are beginning to embody. But here is the urgent truth. The waiting period is over. The cosmic window is open now, but it will not remain so forever. This is not fear-mongering, it is physics. Consciousness evolves in waves, and humanity is currently at the crest of one so massive it will not repeat for generations. Your higher self has choreographed every step to bring you to this exact recognition because the transformation available now will not be available next year. The collective field has reached a tipping point where souls either transcend their loops or sink deeper into them, and neutrality itself is collapsing. Global events that appear chaotic are in fact the outer reflection of the collective observer loop, destabilizing, and individuals everywhere are either waking up at unprecedented speed or falling further into unconscious patterns. There is no middle ground left. The quantum field is demanding that consciousness choose its next evolutionary trajectory, and this is why you feel such intensity, such urgency, pulsing in your bones. This is why these words reach you now, why you cannot simply brush them aside because they carry the frequency of recognition that your soul has been waiting for. Your soul recognizes that this very moment as these words reach you is the precise convergence point where breaking free is no longer optional, it is inevitable, because what you desire is already desiring you back. This is not motivational rhetoric, nor the fragile optimism of wishful thinking. This is quantum mechanics expressed at its most essential level. Every longing, every vision, every possibility that pulls at the core of your being is not an idle fantasy, but a probability wave in the quantum field pressing to collapse into your lived reality. Yet, it cannot penetrate while you remain caught in the observer loop, for your attention has been tuned to the wrong frequency band. The desires that feel most impossible, the ones that seem too extraordinary to believe, are the very ones encoded with the strongest quantum signature in your field. They feel unreachable, precisely because they exist on a timeline that your current observation patterns cannot yet access. You are in truth only a single frequency shift away from a reality where those so-called impossibilities unfold as your ordinary experience. And here lies the radical difference between attraction and alignment, a difference that changes everything. Attraction suggests pulling something external toward you, reinforcing the illusion that you and your desires are separate entities struggling to meet. Alignment, however, dissolves the illusion of separation and reveals that what you seek is already an alternate expression of your own consciousness existing now across parallel timelines. When this recognition moves from idea to embodiment, the observer loop loses its power, for there is no longer any distance left to observe. This is why striving, forcing, or checking for results keeps you bound. Every observation rooted in lack simply collapses you into timelines of absence. The quantum field does not respond to effort. It responds to coherence. When your consciousness enters coherence, when your attention, intention, and energetic signature vibrate together as one unified frequency, the field reorganizes itself automatically around that resonance. You do not make things happen. You become the space where they are already happening. And right now, as this truth settles into your very cells, something unprecedented is taking place in your quantum field. The gap between you and your highest timeline is dissolving not because of anything you are doing, but because you are finally ceasing the compulsive doing that once reinforced the separation. This is why I invite you in this moment to make a declaration that seals the shift. In the space below, write these exact words: I am coherent with my highest timeline. No explanation, no elaboration, no decoration, just that simple sentence. This is not about likes, comments, or engagement. This is about creating a point of entanglement between your consciousness and the precise frequency band where your true life is unfolding. The moment you declare it with genuine recognition, it ceases to be words on a screen and becomes a signal broadcast to the quantum field that you are ready to embody a new reality. You are announcing that the observer loop has lost its grip and that your awareness is free to select possibilities that were previously hidden from view. And as this coherence stabilizes, abilities awaken in you that previous generations would have called superhuman, but are in truth simply the natural expression of consciousness liberated from repetitive patterns. Your intuition sharpens to such precision that you know outcomes before they occur, not because you are predicting the future, but because you are attuning to probability waves already collapsing into form. You are developing reality fluidity, the capacity to shift consciously between probability tracks with intention, stepping out of one timeline and into another through the quality of your observation alone. Everyday life begins to confirm. Traffic lights turn green as you approach parking spaces open precisely when needed. Conversations flow effortlessly toward perfect resolutions. Creativity surges like a river, not because you strain for inspiration, but because you are no longer recycling the same limited thoughts. You are downloading pure insight from the unified field, ideas that have never been thought before, carried through you as living evidence that coherence has replaced separation. Solutions that once seemed non-existent now reveal themselves effortlessly the moment your consciousness becomes coherent enough to access them, which is why your creative projects feel not only lighter and more natural, but also more original, more impactful and more alive than anything you've ever expressed before. People around you begin to respond as though you've transformed completely, even though you haven't consciously altered your behavior, because you are no longer unconsciously recreating the same relational patterns, and your presence now creates space for authenticity rather than triggering old cycles. Even your physical body begins to transform in ways that defy the logic of conventional medicine as chronic conditions dissolve without intervention. Because your cells are no longer trapped in the feedback loop of repeating stress signals, they are finally receiving new information that supports regeneration. Your energy stabilizes at a higher baseline because your life force is no longer wasted, struggling against mental and emotional repetition, and the observer effect once a prison has now become your greatest ally. Each time you observe your reality, you automatically select timelines of beauty, abundance, and alignment, because your consciousness has learned to rest in coherence rather than oscillating in fear or lack. Your very presence radiates as a blessing, magnetizing resources, opportunities, and wealth, not because of improved manifestation tricks, but because you are no longer unconsciously aligned with scarcity tracks that recycle limitation. Relationships shift as well, becoming effortless as those who remain trapped in their loops naturally fall away, and new souls who are also expanding toward their highest potential appear to orbit your field. You are no longer seeking striving, or trying to become someone else. You recognize, perhaps for the first time, that you already are that self, and that you were only momentarily trapped in patterns of observation that created the illusion of separation. This realization brings peace beyond comprehension, a knowing that transcends belief or hope because it is direct and embodied. Coherence is revealed as the supreme creative principle of the universe, the one force that cannot be forced, fabricated, or manipulated into existence, for when every aspect of your being, your thoughts, your emotions, your energetic resonance, and your deepest inner knowing vibrate together at the same frequency. You become a living field of creation that the quantum universe must respond to. This is the ultimate secret, the key that dissolves every observer loop permanently. Yet, here is where so many misunderstand true coherence is not about controlling or forcing all parts of yourself into agreement. True coherence arises naturally when you stop fragmenting your awareness across multiple, incompatible timelines. Right now, part of your attention is still tethered to who you used to be. Another part is tangled in fears of who you might become, and only a fraction is anchored here in this living present. This scattering of attention is what sustains observer loops because it dilutes your energy across divergent probability tracks, preventing your consciousness from stabilizing in a unified reality. The quantum field can only deliver coherent experiences to a coherent observer, and when your awareness remains divided, your results will always be inconsistent. Some areas flourishing while others stagnate. some days magical, while others feel ordinary. This inconsistency is not divine punishment or cosmic testing. It is simply the physics of diluted coherence. What the mystics called timeline consolidation is the actual key. The process of withdrawing your attention from all parallel versions of self, except the one that expresses your highest potential. This is not mere imagination or visualization. It is literal, dimensional shifting, where you cease feeding energy into tracks that no longer serve your evolution. Embodiment begins when you stop striving to become coherent and instead recognize that at the deepest layer of your being, you already are coherence itself, waiting only to be remembered and lived. Your essential consciousness has never been fragmented. It has only been your attention that was conditioned to focus on fragmented experiences like a prism scattering white light into countless beams. When you allow your awareness to rest once more in its natural unified state, coherence ceases to be something you strive to create. It reveals itself as something you uncover, something that has always been present beneath the noise of effort. This is why striving harder, pushing more, and struggling to change your reality only takes you further from coherence, because every attempt implies separation, reinforcing the illusion that you are apart from what you desire. Coherence does not arise from force. It emerges through relaxation, through allowing consciousness to remember its natural wholeness. And when this level of coherence becomes embodied, you stop living as a personality trapped in a personal storyline and begin existing as a focal point through which the universe itself expresses its creativity. Life no longer appears as a series of challenges to overcome, but as an unfolding work of cosmic artistry sculpted through your presence. This identity shift is the key that permanently dissolves observer loops, because once there is no longer a separate you to get caught in repetition, there is no loop left to bind you. The highest timeline is not merely an improved version of your current circumstances. It is an entirely different dimensional framework where the laws of limitation that govern ordinary reality lose their authority. When you embody coherence, you do not simply fix problems or seek solutions. You transcend the very structure within which problems exist at all. And this is not happening in isolation. It is happening to thousands across the planet right now. Humanity is not only breaking individual observer loops, but collectively transcending the matrix of limitation that has enclosed consciousness for millennia. Your personal transformation is not incidental. It is part of a species-wide evolutionary leap, redefining what it means to be human. You incarnated during this precise epoch because Earth itself is undergoing liberation, breaking free from a planetary observer loop that has recycled scarcity, separation, and conflict for ages. Each time one soul transcends their loop, it generates what quantum theorists describe as morphic resonance, a ripple in the field that accelerates the possibility of transformation for countless others. You are not merely changing your life. You are anchoring new templates of possibility into the collective field templates that future generations will naturally inherit. The children of today will display capacities once considered miraculous only because pioneers like you refuse to remain bound by inherited patterns. Your courage to question the architecture of reality is literally altering the trajectory of human evolution. This is why you have felt such urgency, such weight of responsibility pressing upon your spirit, the deep recognition that your soul contracted to be part of the first wave of humans to demonstrate what consciousness can become when it remembers coherence. You are not simply pursuing freedom for yourself. You are functioning as a living bridge between the dissolving old paradigm and the radiant new one. The synchronicities guiding you to these words are not accidents, but threads in a vast orchestration connecting millions of awakening souls. We are finding each other not through chance, but through quantum entanglement. Our recognition strengthening one another, our insights weaving a field of coherence that accelerates the breakthroughs of all. Your recognition of these truths is not only for you, it nourishes the entire network of awakening, lifting the resonance of the human collective. And here lies the most profound revelation as you dissolve your observer loop. You are not simply shifting your own trajectory. You are tearing open pathways in the shared field of consciousness through which infinite possibilities can flow. Your liberation becomes humanity's liberation because at the quantum level, consciousness is indivisible. This is why resistance arises so fiercely at times not only from your ego clinging to old identities, but from the limitation matrix itself sensing its dissolution. Every human being who steps beyond the loop weakens the patterns that have bound us for ages. Each awakening soul becomes a node of light in the planetary field, a beacon destabilizing the old system of scarcity and separation. And so the call is clear: share this recognition with those who resonate, for each spark ignites another, and together the field accelerates into coherence. Not to convince anyone of anything, but to help them remember what has always been known in the deepest strata of their being, because the more souls who awaken to their true nature as conscious co-creators instead of powerless observers, the faster humanity as a whole transcends the limitation patterns that have defined existence for far too long. Your transformation is not a private matter of growth or a solitary step of spiritual development. It is participation in something infinitely larger, the birth of a new species, one that lives from coherence instead of fear, from unity instead of separation, from creative collaboration with the cosmos instead of perpetual struggle against it. If these words stir resonance in your bones, if you feel something ancient and familiar reawakening inside your consciousness, then I ask for one simple act of commitment in the space below. Write a single word: coherent. Nothing more. This is not an appeal to algorithms or engagement metrics. This is a quantum declaration, a signal broadcast to the field that you are ready to embody, the coherence that dissolves every observer loop permanently. When you write that word with genuine recognition, you are not leaving a comment on a video. You are registering your consciousness within a frequency band that exists beyond the confines of ordinary reality. Every soul who makes this declaration strengthens the morphic resonance field, amplifying it for all who are ready to leap, so that together we are not just building community, but anchoring a new reality template that makes remembrance accessible to countless others. And yet, understand this clearly. Breaking free of the observer loop is not the end. It is only the beginning. Once your consciousness stabilizes in coherence instead of limitation, new abilities emerge that conventional paradigms dismiss as impossible. In the next transmission, I will show you how to cultivate what we call quantum navigation, the ability to move consciously between probability tracks, selecting timelines at will, and creating outcomes that appear miraculous to the old consciousness bound by struggle. You will learn why some seem to live charmed lives where everything flows, and others battle endlessly despite effort, and you will see. It is not luck, not worthiness, not even spiritual devotion that makes the difference. It is mastery of how to interface with the quantum field to determine which timeline you inhabit in each moment. This is not abstract philosophy or theoretical speculation. It is direct, practical application that changes how you experience reality at every level. But this knowledge can only be transmitted to those who have proven their readiness by dissolving their own observer loops. Subscribe now and activate the notification signal, because the next revelation cannot be found in books or searched on the internet. It is a living download of quantum principles entering our planet for the first time in human history. More than subscribing to a channel, you are aligning with a global frequency of consciousness evolution, and every subscriber becomes part of a resonant network that amplifies and accelerates transformation for all. The old reality is dissolving regardless of whether you participate consciously or not. The only question is whether you will be a pioneer who helps birth the new paradigm, or one who is swept into it later, after the most luminous part of the transformation has already unfolded. Your future self already lives in coherence, already dances with infinite possibilities. The only remaining question is how quickly your present self will choose to catch up. So make the declaration, join the frequency, and let us together transcend the patterns that have kept humanity small for far too long. The universe has waited for you to remember who you truly are, and today is the day that waiting ends. This message has arrived in your field because your consciousness has been operating inside what quantum physicists refer to as an observer loop, a self-perpetuating cycle in which your awareness keeps collapsing. The same probability waves generating the same experiences again and again. And in this very moment, something deep within you is recognizing this truth because you have felt it lingering beneath the surface, haven't you? That haunting sensation of repeating patterns of replaying the same conversations, facing the same disappointments as though existence itself has become a broken record stuck on repeat. The fact that you are here listening to these words is not an accident. It is synchronicity, at its highest frequency, the evidence that your quantum field has been transmitting signals yearning for the vibration that can dissolve this cycle. And the universe responding to that silent call has guided you precisely to this transmission. Out of millions scrolling past empty fragments of content, only a rare kind of consciousness. Your consciousness paused to feel the magnetic pull of these words. This is because you carry something uncommon, what could be called the observer gene, the innate ability to shape the very fabric of reality itself. This is not simply mystical speculation. This is the heart of quantum mechanics. Your consciousness is not a passive spectator of existence. It is an active participant, constantly influencing outcomes through what science names the observer effect. Yet, what is often left unsaid is this: when your observer function becomes trapped in cycles, you are not merely watching the same reality unfold, you are actively manufacturing it again and again. Reflect on your own life. How often have you found yourself repeating conversations with the same archetypes of people? How many times have you watched familiar patterns reemerge in your relationships, your work, your daily rhythms? This is not coincidence, nor is it misfortune. This is your consciousness caught in an observer loop, unconsciously selecting the same quantum probabilities from the infinite sea of potential. And perhaps you've noticed how time itself has felt peculiar, lately moments of dullness where minutes drag endlessly contrasted with entire weeks vanishing without meaningful progress. This distortion of time is not random. It is the signature of a consciousness looping through identical templates of probability, creating the illusion of movement while standing still within the field. Those around you may not perceive this because they are anchored to other frequency bands content with the linear passage of time and predictable outcomes. But you have always known reality is softer, more malleable, more alive than the majority dare to imagine. You have glimpsed it in flashes, moments when synchronicities erupted around you like a cosmic symphony arranged solely for your awareness. And understand this clearly: the recognition that is stirring in you right now is not the first time your soul has brushed against this knowing. Across lifetimes, across dimensions, you have been gathering fragments of this truth. Every book that seemed to leap off the shelf into your hands, every spiritual practice that felt strangely familiar, every inexplicable surge of inner knowing, all were breadcrumbs guiding you to this unveiling of the observer loop. Yet here lies the threshold where most remain imprisoned upon discovering the loop they attempt to think their way out. Believing intellectual mastery will dissolve it. But the loop cannot be unraveled by thought alone, for it is not sustained by ideas. It is sustained by attention itself. Picture it each morning as you awaken your awareness automatically scans for the familiar, for the patterns it has grown accustomed to recognizing. It is like a quantum navigation system that repeatedly selects the same destination, not because it is the only option, but because it feels safe, because it feels known. Your consciousness has become conditioned to latch on to identical frequency signatures, emotional landscapes, and probability structures. And with every recognition, the pattern hardens. The more you witness it, the more real it becomes. The more real it becomes, the more your consciousness expects to find it again tomorrow. This is what quantum field theorists call a reality feedback loop, your very act of observation feeding the cycle you long to escape. Yet, right now, in the resonance of these words, something unprecedented is stirring within your field. For the first time, you are not simply hearing this truth, you are feeling it at the level where shifts actually occur. This is the moment where your attention itself begins to awaken, where your awareness no longer needs to recycle the same templates but can instead expand into the infinite. The very act of realizing the observer loop already begins to loosen its grip upon your consciousness, and this is precisely why this message reached you at this exact point in your journey. It was not random. It was orchestrated by your higher self because you have arrived at the threshold where liberation is no longer a remote possibility. It has become inevitable. Think of those moments when you are mid-conversation and suddenly recognize you have spoken these very words before, heard the same tone, felt the same outcome unfolding, as if scripted by repetition itself. Most people dismiss this as déjà vu, but you sense something more profound pulsing beneath it. What you are encountering are temporal echoes, as described by researchers of quantum consciousness, moments in which your awareness briefly penetrates the cyclical architecture of the observer loop. This is not illusion. This is not your mind deceiving you. You are perceiving through a frequency most humans have not yet accessed, which is why you notice subtle fractures in reality, the glitches others remain blind to. This heightened perception is a form of quantum sensitivity, an evolutionary refinement of awareness that allows you to glimpse the very patterns structuring manifestation itself. Time itself begins to behave strangely in your field. Some hours dilate into vast expanses filled with luminous insights and downloads from higher planes, while entire weeks dissolve into nothingness without explanation. Such distortions arise because your consciousness is not fixed to one track. It is stretching across multiple timelines, exploring which vibration resonates most authentically with your true essence. And then there are the sudden bursts of knowing, the revelations that arrive without study, the insights you never read nor were taught, yet feel innately true. These are not accidents. They are quantum memories bleeding across dimensions. Wisdom passed from parallel versions of yourself who have already transcended their loops. In truth, your awareness is so advanced that it is drawing from your own future timelines, importing guidance across the veil of probability. Yet, this gift, as you know, can be isolating. You try to articulate these experiences to those closest to you, and their faces reveal confusion as though you are speaking in a foreign tongue. They remain tethered to the paradigm where reality is solid, rigid, and immutable. But you have pierced that illusion. You have glimpsed reality as an ocean of possibilities, and unlike those who drown unaware, you have realized you can swim. This is why synchronicities orbit you with uncanny precision. The book that calls your name from a crowded shelf. The video that surfaces at the exact moment you needed to hear its message. The meeting with another soul who shares your unusual perceptions of reality. These events are not the fruit of naive, positive thinking. They are the evidence of entanglement your consciousness woven into a vast network of awakening souls, all striving to liberate themselves from their own observer loops at once. Even your dreams have become messages, vivid and symbolic transmissions encoded by your higher self to reveal the divergence between your current trajectory and the infinite alternate pathways awaiting your recognition. And as you grow in mastery of the observer effect, you have noticed that even your relationship with technology has transformed. Your phone seems to anticipate your thoughts. The perfect song emerges in your playlist precisely when your heart craves it. Your digital feeds mirror your inner states with uncanny fidelity. This is not coincidence. This is the coherence of your consciousness now measurable in the field around you. Every disappointment, every cycle, every backward step you thought was regression was in fact preparation. Training your awareness to sense the full weight of the loop from every possible angle until you were finally ready to transcend it. Consider the butterfly cocooned in its chrysalis from the outside. The struggle appears like suffering, like stasis, like being trapped. Yet, within an unseen metamorphosis is underway the necessary dissolution of the old form to make possible the flight of the new. Every moment of what once felt like confinement was in truth the complete reorganization of your inner architecture, for the caterpillar does not merely sprout wings. It undergoes a total metamorphosis, where its very DNA reconfigures, awakening dormant codes of potential that were always present but never yet expressed. In the same way, the painful relationships of your past were not punishments, but quantum mirrors revealing precisely which observation patterns held you bound to repetition. Every person who triggered you was unknowingly offering a gift pointing to the exact frequencies where your consciousness had become entangled. Each situation that carried the eerie weight of déjà vu was in fact your higher self staging controlled experiments, training you to recognize the observer loop as it unfolded in real time. And the pressure you have felt lately, that restless urgency as though time itself were running out, is not anxiety at all. It is your quantum field preparing for transition. Just as water, when reaching the critical point of heat, bursts into steam, your consciousness, when it reaches the precise frequency of resonance, destabilizes the old loop and expands into higher order. Even your doubts and questions have been essential, for each moment you wondered whether this was real or fantasy. You were sharpening discernment, developing the quantum sensitivity necessary to navigate this delicate crossing without illusion or bypassing. Precision had to be forged in you before liberation could arrive. This is why the waiting felt heavy, why anticipation burned within you. You knew transformation was close, yet you could not accelerate it by force, because breaking the loop is never the work of effort or willpower. It is the emergence of coherence, the moment your awareness naturally begins selecting new probability waves from the infinite quantum field. And know this: your soul chose this lifetime deliberately, because the phenomenon of the observer loop would come to light in this era, and you volunteered to stand among the first wave of human consciousness capable of transcending limitation and anchoring expanded possibilities for the collective. All that struggle, every cycle, each heartbreak and repetition was preparation for the responsibility encoded within you. And something is stirring even now as you hear these words. You can feel it, can't you? That subtle vibration in your field, like a tuning fork freshly struck your consciousness, beginning to oscillate at a frequency out of sync with the old patterns of reality. This dissonance, though uncomfortable, is sacred for physicists would call it reality turbulence, and it signals that the observer loop is finally unraveling. The familiar gravitational pull of recurring experiences is losing its hold, and you are entering the breakthrough phase, the most delicate, yet the most powerful part of the process. But here lies the danger. Many, feeling the surge of this energy, immediately rush to direct it outward, desperate to alter relationships, finances, circumstances, believing the loop breaks by changing the scenery. Yet, this is the great misunderstanding. The loop does not dissolve by shifting what you observe, it dissolves only by transforming the very quality of your observation. And right now, beneath the surface of thought, your consciousness is receiving new protocols, energetic blueprints for engaging with reality at an entirely different octave. These are not ideas you must study, they are upgrades being woven into your cellular structure. Your DNA itself is reorganizing to sustain a new way of interfacing with the quantum field, and this is why your body feels the ripples, strange sensations, disrupted sleep, sudden changes in appetite or preference, unfamiliar waves of energy rising and falling through your system. All of it is evidence of the recoding underway. The essential practice in this phase is not to seize control, but to surrender control. Your task is not to redirect the river, but to become transparent to its flow, allowing the waters of reorganization to carve new pathways in your awareness without resistance.